Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And welcome to another fine Wednesday morning here in the city of Philadelphia. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns, executive producer, Light Thief Productions. It is a bit cloudy, misty, rainy, weird out this morning. Apparently the sun rose at 7:01 a.m., so we've almost broken the 7 a.m. barrier again. And I just didn't see it because my phone died overnight, and I was up trying to fix things on this broadcast, make it so that it works nicer and faster and better for everyone. We'll see how it goes today. Might have a little weirdness, but hopefully we don't. Got a good show for you, assuming everything goes well. Discrimination doesn't make me angry, it just astonishes me. It's a rough quote. Where did I put that? From Zora Neale. Zora Neale Hurston, a black woman cinematographer, anthropologist. Early 1900s, she was documenting the American South, making important films by black women filmmakers for decades now. But it's interesting to see the loss of knowledge, the lack of recognition for the things that people have been doing for literal decades. I pulled that quote from a list of 50 women's inspirational quotes, and I'm focused on Black women this month because it's Women's History Day in the beginning of the month, so I figured I'd just make it Black and Women's History Month. Anyway, oh look, there's another guest, Mike. I guess Mike dropped out, and I'll fix him up in a second. So we have Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey, former owner of Twitter, testifying about a few things. The Chicago mayor's race is getting a little interesting, as is the Philadelphia mayor's race. Both have had some interesting little things happen in the last week, last couple of days, really. And the Trump non-arrest that was predicted for yesterday. So Trump didn't get arrested. I don't know if you all noticed, but he didn't get arrested. But he was supposed to get arrested, and so I don't know. Who knows what's going on anymore in this crazy, crazy world. So it looks like I have 4 guests. Let's see if we can't get them all on screen. I've got Rachel. Oh, there they are all on screen. I've got Rachel. I've got, let's see here. All right. Let me see if I got them in order. Yeah, looks like it. I've got Taylor, I've got Jason, and I've got Mike. And I've got Rachel in the top left corner. Welcome, guys. Welcome on screen. Please feel free to say hello, say your names, tell everybody who you are. Let's start with Rachel. If you would introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel O'Hanlon Rodriguez. That's a long name. Sometimes folks just call me Rachel O'Rod. It makes things easier. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a performing artist. I think I'm becoming more comfortable using that term. I started as an actor, and then I started doing poetry and comedy, and I kept trying to keep myself in those categories. And now I'm embracing that I'm a mess of all of those things, which has been fun and exciting. I'm also an organizer here in Philadelphia. I do work with Spiral Q, which is puppet theater and social justice work out in West Philadelphia. You might know us for our parades. And sometimes I occasionally get to sleep. That's who I am.
You sleep? I didn't know that was possible in this.
Like in naps, in tiny intervals, like some kind of nocturnal beast.
Okay. Let's move on to Taylor. Taylor, if you would introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, my name is Kellar. I am the director of Puffs at Players Club Swarthmore. By day, I work for the School of Philadelphia Ballet as an administrative assistant. But in my spare time, I like all things theater. I'm a theater connoisseur. I am directing. Sometimes I act. So I have a few hands and a lot of pots, but I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be here and really excited to talk about this show because, as you'll learn from Jason and Mike, it is a beast, and we are so excited to be here and so honored to be a part of this show this morning. So thank you so much for having us.
Awesome, Jason. Jason, if you would introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it
There
is
we
you
go.
do.
My phone didn't want to unmute me. Hi, I'm Jason Boyer. I play Wayne Hopkins in Puffs. By day, I'm a teaching artist in Delaware County in the greater Philadelphia area. I teach theater classes to kids from K through 12, just because I believe that theater education is as important as any other education. So I'm a teaching artist by day. I also act on the side. I have my bachelor's in theater from Temple University. So I'm just involved in all things theater wherever I can be. And it's a dream.
Awesome, awesome. And Mike, if you could introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do.
Hi, I'm Mike Sokolowski. He, him pronouns. I'm a teacher. I won't go as far as Jason as to call myself a teaching artist. I teach Latin for all four levels of high school at Nazareth Academy in Northeast Philly. And I'm very involved in theater. I loved theater since grade school. I act, I direct. Just love to be involved in whatever way I can. Super excited to be part of the Puffs cast and talk about the show today.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. Welcome to the show. We like to talk with artists in the area, and so we've got a good group of folks for that today. Rachel, let's start out with you. It looks like our guest that would have had to drop off early isn't here, so let's start out with the sole proprietor of the group. Let's talk a little bit about Conquistawhore.
Conquistawhore is an experiment. I've been dreaming up this show since I think it was 2019. The first time I accidentally stumbled into comedy. I had written this thing and I was like, I don't know what to do with this. I should read it to people. And the minute I started reading it, I was like, oh no, I'm doing stand-up. Oh gosh. And then I got invited to some open mics and I was like, oh, maybe I like this. And then I don't know, I felt like there's something about stand-up because I've studied so much acting that I just needed to theatricalize it more or felt like I wasn't fitting myself into this container quite right. And then, pandemic happened and I had a lot of time to sit and think. And I started combining what the theatrical world of these stories, like these vignettes that I was writing, what would they look like theatricalized, and that made my poetry start. And so now it's a combo of poetry and raunchy comedy and social justice themes combined with some history to explore my own experience growing up and being trained to be a woman and how that did not feel great. And I'm still learning who I am in a lot of ways. So it's really a personal experiment. But it's really exciting because I'm also doing it through the lens of an American cowboy, which is not on my bingo card of 2023 at all. So I'm excited to hear what people have to say about it. I'm hoping that I can develop it over many sharings and get a lot of feedback from folks, and maybe even other people sharing their personal experiences if they feel so called, so that it becomes a piece that's not just mine, but is almost shared with the community that sees it.
Awesome. tell us where folks can see it. Where can it be seen? Where can people sample a bit of your theatricalized. How did you just say that? Theatricalized
Theatricalized
stand
raunchy
up?
comedy poems,
Yes.
social justice sad boy. I don't know. So there's only two performances currently slotted for Philly Theater Week, March 31st and April 1st at 10 p.m. because that's where I could fit myself in. It's on the third floor of Plays and Players inside of the bar known as Quigs, because where else would you want to see a social justice sad boy cowboy
Nowhere.
walking around?
Absolutely
Um,
nowhere.
yeah, so and it's probably going to be about a half hour. People are encouraged to give feedback. We're actually going to do feedback through maybe some fun games that people can choose to engage in rather than having a conversation, because not everyone wants to sit and chat like that. So there's going to be lots of ways to give feedback. And then hopefully I'll do it again, maybe during Solo Fest for another round of development.
Awesome. Any is there any ticket fee? Is it I know Quigs is a members only space normally. Are they do you have to know somebody in the theater community to get there or
Now
what's
for this, everyone's a member during Theater Week, I think. That's what's beautiful about Theater Week. So there's actually lots of things going on in Quigs and just in Plays and Players generally. So if folks are like, oh, it's only a half hour, there's actually another show right before mine inside of the Skinner studio that is also a comedy sex forward show called DTF. I don't know those artists, so I hope that's okay. I gave them a shout out. I figured that's cool. But that show is at 9 o'clock. Everyone is welcome into Plays and Players during Philly Theater Week. I will say it's a walk up 3 flights. It's not the most accessible space, so I hope my next round I'll find a more accessible space for folks.
Awesome. Yeah, we've talked a lot about accessibility and like, Zoom and the pandemic like just really highlighting accessibility and stuff on this show. It's interesting like that we now like really think about that a lot more than we did pre-pandemic. Um, Anybody from Puffs? Let's transition real quick just to Puffs and talk about a show that I would say is almost on the opposite end of the spectrum. I don't know how you're producing it necessarily, where it's geared towards. It could be anywhere really in the spectrum because Puffs isn't licensed by J.K. Rowling, but it is based on the universe of. Or set in the universe of a certain book that we all know. Political issues with J.K. Rowling and how you take a stance on them could, I suppose, put it anywhere in the spectrum from contemporary youth to adult. So how are you guys taking that, and how's the accessibility at Players Club of Swarthmore?
Yeah, so Puffs is the story of a group of magic students at a certain school of magic and magic. That's what we like to call it. It is a story of, the lesser known wizards and what they've done during the time of like whatever was happening with that other kid. Like this is what they were up to. It does have a little bit of everything. I mean, primarily it is a comedy. We try to make our audiences feel good before they leave. But, as the complexity of life, there is a little bit of tragedy. There's unfortunately some death, if you know what happens in the in the wizarding world. We do try to, give you all the feels, especially with such a great cast. I mean, everybody does such a wonderful job portraying all the characters that we know and love, a little nod, and they've been able to make their own characters with inspiration from the source material, but also bringing in their own ideas, which has been so refreshing, and it's so nice, and it adds that element of comedy that can be hard to find sometimes. And in terms of Players Club of Swarthmore, we are on the second stage, so we are also up a flight of stairs. So unfortunately, not as accessible either. But with topics of J.K. Rowling and her TERF statements, I just want to address that has been a concern for the Puffs cast. In fact, I had a few cast members come up to me, and as a director, I want to create a safe space for everybody, the cast, the audience, everybody who walks in that room. I want to feel like they belong there, because at the end of the day, that's what Puffs is all about. Puffs is the house where everybody can belong and everyone has a place in. And it is with everything, with all the political drama surrounding J.K. Rowling, it was important to me to make sure that we make Puffs its standalone story and honor the author in that way. It was a priority for him to make sure that this piece is its own thing, and it doesn't have to be held up to the source material in order to be successful. And so, I have a statement in my director's note that, we don't agree with her statements, and our cast is very diverse in the sense that we do have people of all gender identities. We have our narrator identifies as demi-queer, I believe is the term that he uses, and he accepts all pronouns. So that's something that I am new to and am working towards, being more accommodating with, because, this is my first time meeting someone who identifies as such. So it's been a great learning process in terms of, making sure everyone feels represented and heard, and also, kind of making this story, this world, our own, and not necessarily following what we know or expect of this world. We're kind of allowing ourselves to take that artistic license and create these characters and make them our own, and let them represent the people that we are, and not necessarily, what should be expected. So it's a really great show. It's got a lot of feels, and we do have a little, elbow nudges to the source material and Miss Rowling herself. So we're going to make you laugh. We're going to make you feel things. And at the end of the day, we want you to have a good time.
Awesome. Any thoughts, Jason, about Puffs? What should people be looking out for? What is the most interesting part of coming to Players Club of Swarthmore and seeing Puffs?
Well, we are a community theater, and I think that Puffs definitely has an emphasis on community, not just in the script of the show, but in the actors who are in the show. We've been working together for just a little over 2 months now, or like just over a month, I guess. I don't know. Time is weird. But we just hit it off right away. Everyone is very much open to doing anything. We feel comfortable talking to each other about our characters and just trying new things. There's a lot of experimentation with our characters that happens throughout the show, throughout the process. It's like, well, what do you think if I did this? What do you think if I did this? And Taylor has offered a space where we feel comfortable enough to do that. So it's just been a very fun process, and I think anyone who comes to see the show will feel like, oh, maybe I want to do a show here, or I can relate to these characters a lot, because they just are very relatable characters. It's just I think community is at the heart of our story. So there's everyone has a character to play, but the show doesn't work without any of these characters or any of these actors.
Awesome. And Mike, you are acting in this piece, correct?
I hope I'm acting well in the piece. That's really up to Taylor.
I think you are.
Yeah. I just to go off what Jason was saying. Taylor's created a really great environment for everybody in the cast. Everybody, despite being snakes, badgers, braves, and smarts all combined, everybody feels like a puff in this show no matter what. It's a really good environment. It's a good mix of people I've known for a while and not known for a while, and everyone's really melded really well together. The show has a lot of opportunities for improv that are written into the script that way, and a lot of people have taken some really, really funny directions on things that are very unexpected. And I think one of the other things I think is going back to the original question that you asked Taylor about, everything with Puffs and its connection to J.K. Rowling. One really interesting thing I noted about the script is that a lot of it's more geared towards stuff in the movies than the books. Obviously, the movies being based on the books, of course, but like a lot of the references are like very specifically movie references, which I found to be a very interesting thing about the script. But everybody in the cast is really making their character their own. It's a very enjoyable show. It's a really it's a very unique cross section of humans assembled on the stage, and I love it. I'm having a blast, and I really am confident that audiences will too when they come.
Awesome. Where is Players Club of Swarthmore? Obviously, it's sort of in the name, but let's make it explicit for everybody. And where can people get tickets to the show?
Absolutely. So Players Club of Swarthmore is located in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. I believe the address of the theater is 614 Fairview Road. Don't quote me on the zip code.
You're correct. It's 19081. I have it pulled up right now.
Look at that. But we right now, Much Ado About Nothing is playing. So we are the next to go up. We will be starting April 7th and we will run through the 16th. No show on Easter Sunday, but we will have a performance on Thursday the 13th, if my math is correct, or 12th. But make sure you come check us out. Tickets are available on Players Club of Swarthmore's website. I think it's pcstheater.org. Tickets are running about $15 a piece. Make sure you get your tickets now because I can't make any promises. We will have any at the door. So we really look forward to seeing you all there.
Awesome. Yeah. So, what are ticket prices? Do you know?
$15, and it's general admission. So first come, first serve. And if you're in the front row, I cannot guarantee that a wizard won't sit on your lap.
I would take it as an incentive if you did guarantee that a wizard would sit on my lap. But I mean,
we'll see how.
Who doesn't want some magic in their life?
I will guarantee it then. I will make sure it happens.
Awesome.
Happening already. I will say that I have not made it through a rehearsal without cracking up in at least one different scene every so far.
That's always the good part about live production is that something different happens every day, and you're not necessarily sure what that different thing is going to be, but something different happens every day. Let me pull up my topics of the day here. I have them sort of on screen, but let me pull them up a little bit differently. Hang on one second. I'm excited to see so much production back again for Philly Theater Week 23, and it's good to see that we're gonna do Barrymore Awards again this year, and there's a couple other things that are cool going on in the Philadelphia theater world. A momentary aside, a not quite so cool thing. Billy Penn, the news outlet, posted on their website and Twitter earlier that hundreds of white supremacist stickers were plastered around Port Richmond. On the good side, neighbors sprung into action to take them down, as opposed to certain notable event where there were people roaming around Port Richmond threatening to beat people up. But yeah, at least people decided to take them down. Um, Interesting. I haven't read the article yet, but there's interesting an interesting note here that a post on Reddit calling out the stickering garnered over 400 comments and sparked discussion on racism and white supremacist views in the neighborhood. I okay. I feel like we can discuss whether or not they exist. This is I'm going to throw this back to a conversation that I've had recently with regard to Penn professor Wax. There's a law professor, Amy Wax. She is a tenured professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and she's faced criticism for white supremacist views for since about 2014, which is after she gained tenure. But in 2014, she had a public interview where she expressed some white supremacist views, and has had a track record of not really backing down from those in any sort of way, and in fact, more doubling down on them, with things like during an initial roll call in one of her classes, she ran across several quote unquote foreign sounding names, and then got to a basically Euro whitish name like Amy or something like that, and said to the person, "Oh, finally a white name. No, that's good, really." I mean, come on. Uh, and has done a number of other things that are detailed out in a letter by the dean of the law college. So, you know, for those that aren't involved in how colleges and universities are made up, there's different departments. They all have deans. There's a dean of the college who is above all those departments. And in this case, since Penn is the university, it's a dean of the university, and there are colleges underneath, which are the departments. The dean of the law college wrote a letter 2 years ago requesting some adjudication on whether or not there should be consequences for Professor Wax's statements, etc. You know, should somebody who is a professor be expressing these views? Should they face consequences for it? That kind of thing. There has become a conversation in public, nationwide, really, involving people, you know, from across the political spectrum on whether this is a freedom of speech issue. And so, I mean, I like, so feel free to guys to jump in anytime you have an opinion here. I like to leave it open. You know, you can jump in whenever you want or have a thought. I am a big proponent of free speech myself. I think that freedom of speech allows us all to do what we do. It allows me to have this broadcast, you know, etc. But there is a difference between freedom of speech and consequences for your speech. I have this broadcast. I say things on it all the time. I face consequences for that. You know, like there are people who won't work with me because of what I say on this broadcast or say in public or say to, you know, coworkers. You know, I often represent that my coworkers should be making a lot more money than they do, and have positioned myself in ways in my business life to make sure that my coworkers make more money than they usually do. And there are certain producers in this city who won't hire me and have publicly stated they won't hire me because that's what I do. Like, you know, I'm sorry, I don't care so much about your budget. I care that my friends can eat. you know, so there are consequences to this speech. There's consequences to that fact that's what I believe. It's not the government telling me I can't say that. That would be a violation of my freedom of speech.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was just thinking in terms of freedom of speech too, is like what position you hold and your responsibility to the community that you were a steward of. If you are a teacher and a leader and a professor of a classroom who has multiple different bodies from multiple different spaces, especially that university with international students, it is a responsibility to make that an equitable space and to align yourself with the values of this institution, let's say. And so it's irresponsible at the end of the day. It has nothing to do necessarily with the freedom of speech. It's that your role in this space doesn't allow for you to just share those things without understanding how it impacts the people you're supposed to serve. Because at the end of the day, when people are professors, the people that pay your salary are your students. And I think that institutions of higher learning really ought to start recognizing that the people who are in the student body are funding the institution, and their values and their safety and how they feel should be actually the topmost priority, instead of these higher ups or these deans or anyone else thinking they know what the young people need, because the young people are often telling you what they need and the institutions aren't listening.
I mean, just to counterpoint that argument, because that's my job for some reason. Not that I actually have an argument with it, but just to counterpoint that argument, you have people saying things like, it's not her responsibility to serve the student body, but rather to provide them a learning fabric. Like that. So why can't she say things that are racist?
Because you can't learn when you feel unsafe. When your body is in trauma, you can no longer learn. And racism is abuse and it's trauma, right? So you are actually impacting people's learning in a very visceral, neurological way.
I'd agree with that. I don't have a good argument here. I'm just, these are just the things that I hear. My shutdown to this argument was, and I think will continue to be, the difference between a freedom of speech and the inalienable rights that are detailed in the founding documents of our country, but also in general just seem to exist. The rights of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, those things, those lofty goals that we kind of hold out there, those are actual, human rights. They exist beyond the fabric of a government. And then the freedom of speech isn't an unalienable right. I mean, in a way it is, because anybody can say anything they want, but the freedom of speech is that the government doesn't come after you for what you say. And unfortunately, that's not an unalienable right. It's just a right that we have in this country. And so where your government guaranteed right of freedom of speech impacts my inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I think that's when we stop having that government guaranteed right, and we start having a conflict that's resolved easily by going, hey, sorry, your right to speak doesn't supersede my right to live. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think, there's also an element of, just because you have the freedom of speech doesn't mean what you say doesn't make you a jerk or doesn't make people feel safe or respected. I mean, going off of what Rachel said, especially in an environment where it is, this person's responsibility to teach, the students who are coming, to paying for school nonetheless, like they are paying for this class, and to go into an environment where they feel unsafe is not okay. They are willing, they want to further their education, and so to have an instructor or even a leader put them in a position that makes them feel disrespected is just not okay. And I think at the end of the day, we are all human regardless of your skin color. And as a Caucasian woman myself, it is my responsibility to like check myself at the door and to make sure that like the words I say matter. And whatever, if I'm talking about someone who has different life experience than me, it's my job to listen and acknowledge those differences and to make an effort to like accommodate. That's, at the end of the day, I don't think it's asking too much of people to be a good person and to be respectful. And, you might see a name that you might not know how to pronounce. The least you can do is say, could you help me? Can you tell me like what, how can I help you and succeed? Right? Like, I don't understand this element of white supremacy where it's like, the Caucasian race has to be on top. Why is it that, we can't see each other as equal? We all have the same struggles. We all come, from similar backgrounds and different backgrounds.
Well,
I think it's
Amy Wax's position, and I think the position as far as I understand it of most white supremacists is that not that the white race has to be on top, but that it is, which is factually untrue any way you break it down, but that like that there's an inherent quality of betterness to people who are quote unquote white. I'll remind everybody at this moment that white is a completely social construct invented in the United States to create and apologize for slavery before we abolished it. But yeah. It's just it's fascinating to me, like that people like Wax still exist in an era where we have access to the whole of human information on literally a device in our pocket. But I don't know. It also goes to like what you were saying about names. I think goes to J.K. Rowling and trans rights in general, gay rights in general. I don't care what I'm gonna call you. You tell me what you want me to call you. You tell me. All our names are just sounds that we respond to. Like it's a little song that our parents invented that we know what it is, and it has nothing to do with anything else. Like why
yeah.
why do I care?
Well, I think, what it boils down to is that there's still fear from these people. There's this fear of, that acknowledging the past and past behaviors and so it takes a lot of strength to, apologize for things that you don't necessarily have the responsibility. Like, you might not have done it yourself, but, that awareness takes a lot of relearning and a lot of time and dedication to better yourselves for the other people. And a lot of people are just afraid to do that, which, they don't want to acknowledge that maybe what they know and have grown up with has been bad or has been, not necessarily like, the ideal way of processing things. My partner and I have these conversations all the time where it's like, why isn't it just that simple? And I think it's because people are afraid. People are afraid to acknowledge the trauma that they have caused other people and the pain that they've caused other people because they don't want to admit it to themselves. And I think in terms of Amy Wax's position, I think she hopefully one day will recognize the weight of her words and the weight of her behavior towards these students. And I only hope, my hope is that the students make their case and make their case to the university saying this is not a safe environment for us to be in.
I just wonder how long we have to have this conversation. This is why my shutdown of the conversation was like it's not a conversation anymore. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
like
Yeah.
it's not really a conversation. Like at this point, it's just there is reality and there's whatever else anybody decides to believe. And like the quote for today, Zora Neale Hurston was saying this in 1900. Pre-1900, the 1890s, she was saying it already. She's, sometimes I feel discriminated against, but it does not make me angry. It merely astonishes me. How can anyone deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's a little bit of a conceited quote, but it's funny. But seriously, like, I don't know. I'm not the bee's knees, but why is somebody gonna like look at me as a person and go, "Oh, you don't match up with my expectations of reality, therefore I'm going to avoid you by assuming that you're not as good as me or don't fit, like somebody that I want to be associated with."
I do a lot of anti-racism work and like spent a lot of 2020, I would say, arming myself with a lot of tools to continue these conversations because I'm tired of not addressing it's in every space. And one of the favorite ways I was learned to talk about white supremacy is that it's the umbrella we all live under. And other people, depending on skin color, gender, all of these different intersectional factors, some people have a more difficult experience being under this umbrella. But we all are under the same umbrella, and it is causing harm to everyone. Because I often think about, like, I'm half white and I'm half Puerto Rican. So I have to be in this intersection. And I think, like, whiteness is a lie, right? That taught me or taught white folks that they're somehow better. But that doesn't mean you have better things. It doesn't mean your schools are better or you're in a better neighborhood always. Some folks do. It depends on your income tax bracket. Some folks, like, if you go on the main line, you have a different experience of the world than I've ever had. But I think it causes this harm where it's like you don't look at people as people anymore. And I wonder often then, how do you look at yourself? If you can't see the humanity in others, what is the humanity of yourself when you're so entrenched in white supremacy that you've been taught that you're something that you're not actually? And I think it causes like an out of touchness and an out of alignment, and it's traumatizing to everyone. And I think talking about it in that way is sometimes helpful for me because it allows us to move past right and wrong or good or bad, because it just is. We're in this reality and we have to reach wholeness. And I think wholeness is when we're humans. And that's healthy. I like to talk about it like, is it healthy or unhealthy, not good or bad? Because these aren't morality things. And then we start getting into all these shame things. It's like, do you want to be healthy? I think is sometimes an easier way.
I think that's fair to talk about it as a healthy, not healthy thing. But also for those of us who experience a lot of consequences for just being born brown, I think it's and for those who are quote unquote woke, the actual meaning of woke, which was started by the black community and doesn't actually mean anything good, it actually just is a phrase that black folks started using to talk about people who were way too hoteppy for their own good. But anyway, but the actual like the real woke people are like like the when you see the reality for what it is and you're like so like I don't get the anti-woke thing. The anti-woke thing is like, oh, reality is that, and you're and you and so you I'm gonna literally tell you that I don't want to see reality for what it is anyway. I'm gonna but that's the thing, like it's like that is reality, right? Like reality is what you're saying. It's that we live under this system that was, for better or for worse, it was created through generations of white male leadership, and people trying to protect themselves and their fortunes and their families, ingratiate themselves and make sure that their children had an easier time than the next door neighbor's children. It's nothing more than that. It's not, a lot of folks like DeSantis likes to say he doesn't want children taught that it's bad to be white, or that they're bad for being white. And it's not, and what people who are anti-racist are constantly saying is it's not bad to be white. It has nothing to do with bad or good, or it's not bad to be racist. It's just a thing that you're doing. And it would be great if you just acknowledge the reality that racism is a construct, and great, it helps you get by every day, but that it's not the reality. There is no, contrary to Professor Wax, maybe somebody should make me a professor at UPenn, because contrary to Professor Wax, I know the fact that just being born black, Asian, and white doesn't make me better or worse at any given goddamn thing in the entire universe. I've all my life I've had people go, "Oh, you're part Japanese. You must be really good at math." Fuck no, I'm not. Like, what? How would I be good at math? I'm not good at math. I hate math. I need a.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
think a big part of it is that acknowledgement, right? Like, I like as a Caucasian woman, I know that, I do hold a certain responsibility to hold space for my Black friends who are affected by these traumatic events, and it's my duty to, make them feel safe and try and at the end of the day, just listen. Just listen. That's all you have to do. Listening to people and respecting them and caring about them and holding that space for them. I think we get into a sticky situation where it's, you don't necessarily have to understand 100% to care. And I've dealt that with, my grandparents. I've dealt that with teachers. I've dealt that with, how many people in the world, right? I have a situation and they don't necessarily understand or can relate, but at least they care. And that, I think, makes all the difference when it comes to, especially when you're in a leadership position. I have, some of my cast members coming up and, oh, I'm worried about so-and-so. Oh, and I might not understand, because at the end of the day, the show looks great. And I'm like, good, you're doing fantastic. What do you mean you're worried? But I'm holding that space to care for them. And I'm holding that space to show them that I'm listening, and that, and I always ask, what can I do to best serve you in this situation? Because at the end of the day, that's all, that's the best thing that you can ask. It's, how can I help? What can I do to help you? And 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you. And sometimes it's just, oh, I just want you to hear me. I just want you to hear what I have to say. And that's the best thing that you can do as allies. And, and also if action needs to be taken, take that action. And I really think it really determines on who you're talking to on a case by case basis. But just being a good friend at the end of the day is what people are looking for. I truly think.
Yeah. I'm gonna co-opt your language there for a moment, though. I think you're right with everything you just said. So don't take this co-opt as a negative. But I'm gonna co-opt your language the same way folks like DeSantis and Dorsey, what's his name, the former UFC guy that hosts a relatively racist show now. All these
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan,
Joe Rogan.
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
So all these folks, they say the same thing, that they want to hold space, but that they want to hold space for everybody. And that they want to hold space for those that are no longer being heard. In their opinion, those that are no longer being heard are the white male former leaders of their communities. Why don't we hear from Bob the line worker anymore? Why don't we hear from why isn't DeSantis on the national stage? He's got some good ideas. Go ahead, Jason. You don't have to hold your hand up.
To come off that, just because that's all of human history.
I mean, yes, that is. I mean, I think maybe we've heard a lot from that neighborhood. I think that's what Black and brown folks would say. Yes, we've heard a lot, especially women. I think would say we've heard a lot from guys. Study after study says that even when us male presenting folks think that we're allowing equal time. We're only allowing like 30% of the time for people of female presenting to speak. I'm killing you, Rachel. Sorry.
I was just thinking about this moment. This is years ago. I won't disclose the person because that's not what we're here for. But I remember this white man was doing this play about race. And he was explaining to us that the reason it was about race is because we had gotten over sexism. And it was the first day of rehearsal, y'all. It was the first thing this white man said. And I was like, oh no, what project are we all doing now? Oh my gosh. So yeah, you're right. All of these issues completely solved for white men. It's really exciting. I'm so excited. They probably solved it too. They just don't disclose how they magically cured it.
You just needed
go ahead
to hear from 2 or 3 people. That's all it was.
Yeah.
It was those bad apples. Once we got rid of the bad apples, sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean, it makes us laugh, I think, sometimes just to make us not cry. But then, so this was a link into Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter, actual, coder, somewhat of a good guy, but as any multi-millionaire, multi-billionaire, tends to have a little bit of a protectionist streak to white male hegemony because that's, how he got his power. Why are you gonna give that up? SPLC published in 2021, in July of 2021, an article about Twitter and how Twitter made space for racists and white nationalists to basically create the January 6th insurrection. A lot of us who work in anti-racism, anti-fascism, were kind of waving red flags around hopelessly in the years and then months and then more and more of us in the weeks and days leading up to January 6th. We were like, something is going to happen. Y'all don't know, but we do, and we've seen it, and we've seen it leading up to it, and it's going to happen. And hey, anybody, a lot of this planning for January 6th happened like completely out in the open. I myself submitted probably like 100 reports of public forums where people were literally saying things like they were going to bring machine guns to the Capitol on January 6th and storm the Capitol. It was like right out in the open, and one of the venues that all of this out in the open planning was happening on was Twitter. Of course, prosecutions and investigations into the occurrences on January 6th have been ongoing. And Jack Dorsey has been called to testify in front of Congress. And his testimony just makes him look like the bad guy, but also sort of is. But this is where we get to free speech. Where is the line for free speech here? A lot of people called out Jack Dorsey, and the little bit that the Twitter folks did to kind of tamp down and or limit the amount of open insurrection talk and white nationalism there was on Twitter. Where do we draw that line? Where do we go, hey, this is a bad idea? And how do you do that without government intervention, since that would be a violation of free speech? Any thoughts?
Just a sort of soundbite is like that they did do something, but it's like it feels like a lot with these social media apps and stuff. It's after the fact that the thing has happened. Like they banned, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but like they banned Trump's account after the insurrection happened. They like started like mass reporting accounts and like doing stuff after all of this happened. I think it's more like the question for me is like, why are they not being more preventative towards it not happening and less about cleaning it up after it's already happened?
Well,
and like more about cleaning it up on why since it's already happened.
That's because and I have an answer for that one. That's because the quote unquote conversation still exists. I don't think it's an actual conversation, but it's a conversation for white liberals and conservatives, especially neolibs love to say, oh, Nazis should be allowed to demonstrate on the public square. I don't think so. I think Nazis should be forced from public, but
especially when you think that Germany doesn't let Nazis like, and also just going back, like Germany honors its history. It has one history. Yeah. It tells everyone that we talk about it. We culturally understand it and atone for our past, so we don't like go do it again. You know what I mean? So like, if that's Germany, why do you think that it should just be happening here? Like if it's hate groups, and again, it's kind of what you said before, James, of like, if my action is disrupting someone else's constitutional rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, why does that get to supersede? Because then we get to see white supremacy at work, right? Because whoever is superseding the constitutional rights are usually white conservatives.
Yep.
Not always, but usually, or people with the money to buy their way in.
Yes. It's 11 o'clock, folks. I want to respect your time and thank you for joining me. There are a couple of topics we didn't touch on. I just want to quick rush through them and see if you have any thoughts. Chicago mayor's race. I was looking for the quote, but the Chicago mayor recently, one of the Chicago mayoral candidates. So in Chicago, if you're not following the race closely, they had an election, a primary in which the current Democratic mayor of Chicago was not selected as going forward as the candidate for re-election. Two candidates scored very closely to each other, and none of the candidates got over 50% of the primary vote, which in Chicago means that they go to a runoff. There's currently a runoff between a black candidate and a white-ish candidate, white-adjacent candidate. He's got a Hispanic last name, but very, very pale-complected gentleman who works adjacent to whiteness, and who recently said that the problems of the black community are the fault of the black community in Chicago, that if we cleaned up our own community, we'd do better. You're running in Chicago, bud. I hate to tell you. Most of your folks voting are black and from the community that you just said needs to clean itself up.
I'd love to take a look at those like sanitation services and where they go and what zip codes they serve, because if it's anything like Philadelphia, I know Old City and South Street get a lot of care, and I can barely get the trash picked up on the normal basis here in Kingsessing. So I wonder how the city contributes to whatever cleaning up is supposed to be done for its community. But, I don't know Chicago.
Yeah, it's just a comment that completely ignores every socioeconomic, ethnic, racial issue, historical issue that contributed to how some of these issues got to be where they are in the first place. It's just a very ignorant soundbite. It's really, yeah.
I mean, it is a soundbite for what it's worth, and I try not to
Right.
focus on sound bites, but it at the same time, like the sound bites, the reason why they run is because they do kind of let you. They're like those micro reactions that we all focused on for a hot minute in the early 2000s. They let you in on the internal thought process of whoever is speaking because, you know.
Yeah, the implication there is let them deal with it. If you're going to take anything away from that little soundbite, and that's just an awful approach.
Right. And then Philadelphia mayor's race, the PHL Ed mayoral candidates forum was yesterday at 6:30 p.m. Didn't actually get started until a little bit past 7. And there's a good, really fast Twitter thread on this by DHP Design, Desperate Hours Design. They're a design company here in Philadelphia, but they're also politically active folks, and it's an interesting thread to read through if you don't have time to watch the whole forum. Feel free to read through that Twitter thread. There's a lot of good pullouts. My favorite so far is that Councilmember Alan Dom issued a statement as to why he wouldn't be able to attend. It's literally a one-page statement, and because of how big his logo is on the page, it's only really like a half-page statement. And former council member Helen Gim's response was, "Too long, didn't read. Sad to see that happen. / hope that everything works out." I'm of two minds on this. I think it's funny, but also at the same time, I don't think that a candidate for mayor should be dismissing any sort of conversation at this point in the primary process. If you want to respond to something, make it a conversation. If you don't want to respond to something, that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to just let Alan Dom release his statement on why he's not going to be at this educational forum, and then not respond to it. It stands on its own, right? I mean, am I crazy here? Anybody?
I don't know. I think you're right. I just think that, kind of what we said before of the sound bites, it's about being seen. I think social media has really changed the way we interact, and without standards about how we take care of each other and show up for each other, it's just going to keep happening. And I think that conflict sells a lot and gets a lot more likes than a conversation often does, unfortunately, in social media.
There's a lot about owning each other instead of having a conversation with each other. Now it's like, oh, I made you look silly on social media, so I'm just
I'm the better candidate for mayor of one of the biggest cities in the United States.
Sadly, yes. Though that is how it boils down. It's not correct, but that is pretty much what has been created over the past 20 years.
That's just awful. I mean, and also what I'm doing wrong. That's probably why my viewership is so low, and why I can't get conversations with everybody I want to get conversations with, because, I don't try and own people. I just like to have conversations. Anyway.
Yeah. But but that's the problem. You can have a great conversation. We should be having conversations, but the problem is, if in conversation you let something slip, or you say something dumb, or you just make one mistake, that exists forever. And that fear, I think, is one thing that does drive people away from having real talks about real issues. Because you have to make mistakes in order to make progress. You have to not understand something first before you can understand it. But the problem is, when you say something where that expresses that you don't understand something, the reality is, well, you didn't understand it then, you can never understand it. You're done.
There's a difference between expressing yourself as an expert on a topic and thereby and also expressing that you don't understand it, versus expressing yourself as trying to find the answer to a topic. And
Yeah, I completely agree. I just think that nuance is almost gone. Being able to distinguish between the two.
I hope
I think that absolutely exists and is real, and that having the heart of wanting to understand help explain it to me. However, just with how things have grown socially, we really do struggle to understand nuance, and I think that really kills us in a lot of ways.
Well, my nuance for this is that Hellingem opened the door on a TLDR response and a meme response, so I'm going to open the door on a meme response and say that the answer, "I'm sorry, I'm too busy," is not a good answer in a mayoral campaign, and is also the theme of every answer that Hellingem's campaign has given so far, including to our request to interview her on this show.
I would agree with that.
You know, like, if you don't have time to answer the little questions or have the little conversations now, what do you think it's going to be like when you're mayor and you need to have those conversations?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you entirely. I'm just saying, like, I think I sadly not understand. I recognize the very unfortunate reality of someone won't take that risk, even though it shouldn't be a risk to take. It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
Is the best way I can put it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna once again thank you guys for being on. Thank you for hanging out with me for an extra couple of minutes. Trump's non-arrest and he's huddling with his expert advisors. I said on Twitter, in a TLDR meme format, dude, that capybara in the corner and that moldy piece of pizza laying on the counter are not your senior advisors. You need to get out of the house. Anyway, I feel comfortable owning Trump without actually having a conversation.
Fair, and I support that.
I think that person's capable of conversation or sentences potentially, but you know, that's just me. Whatever.
Last thoughts, Rachel. Anything?
One of the things that I wrote down, and this directly goes to my solo show, is that America reminds me of young dating before I learned standards. You know, like that I deserved better and that people didn't need to treat me like crap, because that's my young self, you know. And I think America ought to like just grow out of its adolescent years and like just have some standards for how we like take care of each other. It's kind of basic, but like definitely prefrontal cortex developed, 25 years old. So I wish us some growth into our 20s as Americans.
Awesome. Mike, last thoughts.
Yeah. I just think I just want to say just having experienced the show today for the first time, what you do is great. I know that last topic of conversation about conversation, interestingly enough, about that, conversations are important, and as much as people resist them, keep having them, because that truly is the only way to make a change, is by enforcing it yourself. So the conversations are great. I loved this forum, even though I didn't say much until the end. You guys were all making good points, so I didn't want to get in anybody's way. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And again, it was great chat, great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Jason, last thoughts.
Yeah. Just echoing Mike, this was great. I love having conversations about quote unquote sensitive topics, but I think if I had any sound bites or anything, I would say that going back to Puffs, but also queuing into like our conversations, is community is important. We have to take care of one another. We have to do that. And the thing I always say is don't be nice, be kind. And I know they're synonyms for each other, but just be good to one another. Be kind, listen, stuff like that. Just be kind. Yeah.
to echo Keanu Reeves, be excellent to each other. Taylor, last thoughts.
Yeah, just kind of circle back. Something that we learn in Puffs is that Puffs are known for their failures, and they have to fail a lot. They fail over here, they fail over there, and sooner than later they get better. They learn, and I hope that America, Philadelphia, the world can learn to accept our failures and to practice and get better. So thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you all for this conversation. I really appreciate it. Hope to have you guys on again soon. And I'm going to go to a one-up of me. Feel free to hang out in the chat for a minute if you'd like. And I'm going to outro the show, and I will be available after I've done that. And thank you to my audience. Thank you for joining us every week. We really appreciate it. We appreciate that you care about these conversations. Conversations are important, as everybody said, and I think it's great to be able to talk to folks that care about life in general. That's why most of my guests on this show are artists. Because I think that it's super important to talk to artists, and that artists really delve into every aspect of life with where the arts. That's where the arts lives. It is the place in our society where we really monkey wrench on our own self. At any rate, thanks for watching. Tune in again next week. We'll have another guest, another good show for you. Let's see if we have we don't have our guest set yet for next week, but we will have a guest next week. And we'll have more news and information, more current events, more opportunities for you to think and talk and listen. If you like what you've seen, please hit like, hit subscribe, share it out to your friends, share it on your Facebook profiles and pages. It's a little show, but it's a big show. And we'd like it to get out there to everyone. Consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/LightThiefProductions. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. We'll see you soon.